Hello, Planet Sewers. It's Mathletee back with franchise mode, Meeze Tropical Africa. We're here with the Himalayan Brown Bears. We're still working on that habitat, starting off with making a blueprint for this right here so I can put it on the other side. And everybody say hello to Ruby. She is awake today. Everybody's awake today. I actually woke up early to do my voiceover today, and the dogs are super rambunctious. So anyway, we're going to make this blueprint, and I'm going to use it on the other side of this tunnel entrance, so they kind of have the same feel as you walk in and out, same kind of designs. They're a little bit different, obviously, when I get done, but I was super happy with how this turned out in the end. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to build most of it, and I'll show you some sneak peeks at the end, some little images, and then next week we'll finish off where we left off, of course. So it will take another episode to get this done. In real time, this did take a lot. It is just a lot of splitting the groups out to make these curves. I edited out a lot of me just spinning around the top, kind of thinking and looking at how I wanted to put this together, and how I wanted to do the roofs. I was really trying to keep the roofs simple, and they do get complicated when you do these kind of curves. They're just a little more difficult because you're not on the grid. So I really did try to edit out little stuff that, me scrolling for long times, or of course times where I just kind of pause or I'm just looking. So I tried to make it as short as possible. Right here I did use a curve piece. It had just the right amount of curve that was going right here, instead of trying to curve around a straight piece. So I just split it out from the group. Almost every single one of these pieces going down ends up getting split. This path does have quite a curve to it as it comes down. If you are following along, you can go back with the path and come out a little more straight. Turn 90 degree on and make sure that your paths are straight, and it will require less of this type of building where you set them down, split it from that group, move it around. This one looked like it was all nice and lined up, and I was like, wait. And so I moved it some, and then I decided to look at it from the other side, and you'll see that in a second. It's like, oh, this is not lined up at all. So you have two choices as you go through here. You can cover the curb with the wall if you like. If you do that, you would probably want to stay just right on the edge of that curb. Main reason is any building piece that's on the actual path, if you set down a trash can, if you set down a bench, or any of those kinds of things, they will kind of disappear into the wall if you want them next to the curb. And then your guests as well will be able to walk through those walls because they're on the path. Anything on the path, the guest will be able to walk through. And then I did notice I needed to drop this wall down just a little bit so it wouldn't show up in the floor of the habitat there. So I wanted to just drop it down a little bit. A lot of the top part of this is in the ground, so you're not going to see that it didn't quite meet. And then I came over here and decided to go ahead and close this side off because we're building on pause here. Now if you don't want to do the custom barrier with the knoll, you can just use the concrete barrier to right here, which would be a lot easier. The reason I don't do that, I think I spoke about it in the last episode, is when you use the in-game barriers, they actually, they deteriorate. over time, and your mechanics have to fix them. Whereas if you build them with all construction materials, then your mechanics don't need to come and maintain these. So they will stay nice and pretty, and they also are just less in, I guess, repairs. So just something to think about when you're going through and making habitats. You don't have to do all custom barriers like I have been. You can leave them with a different barrier if you're following along with this. I know this habitat may be pretty hard to follow along with. If you do have any questions, just let me know. Making a tunnel can be very frustrating, and I really made this one. I really wanted it to go a different way. Like I said in the original, or the episode before this, I wanted it to pop out right there by the stores, and I just could not get that to happen. So we ended up curving and popping out the other side. So here I did use another curved piece, and we're gonna split that from the group too. Give it a good old spin. What I end up doing here is this was more of a straight shot down on this side. It didn't have as much of a curve to it. So I end up spinning this to kind of fit, and then I go ahead and run all the straight pieces. Originally I was like, I'll just pull this back, but then I didn't like the big gap that it had here. And there's a couple of touches I still need to finish with this. Even though I said it's done, I do need to do a couple more things with rocks to fill in some spots that I forgot about. So I was just panning around thinking about how I wanted this in here, so I took that out, and I decided, let me go ahead and put in that straight piece. That will help me to line this up. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple, because I can see this goes pretty much straight down after the curve. So we're going to do that. So first I was lining up this piece. I did kind of want to have it just on the edge of that curb, or covering it up. I do go back and change the curb path, which does change the curb. But anyway, a little bit later, I like the concrete path, but I like the curb and the rail of a different path, because I did not want to make custom rails throughout here. I thought about it, but I did not. If I were to do that, I think, I don't know. I'm thinking, would I put that on the wall and move it around? But no, that wouldn't work. It would just end up in wrong heights. I mean, they'd be all straight eventually over your head, unless you did have them at an angle, but the angles change, so you would still have to go around and do that piece by piece. So changing angles to bring that over, and then I can see it doesn't quite meet, so I'm going to scoot it over some. Like I said, I was trying to cover up that curb with this curve and straight wall, but I do need this to meet over there. I could have left it over there and plunked another straight one in. They may have fought a little bit, but they're underground, so you may not really have seen them. So that's another option that I could have done there. So I'm going to go ahead and get this next piece and cover up the dirt. So one thing I did forget to do is put some rocks behind on this side, just so it has, not the dramatic drop. I could have put them closer to the wall over there of dirt instead of so close to the, little walk down here. But I decided I wanted mine close to the path and not close to the terrain there. Words would be great. Anyway, so I decided I wanted to use the modern glass here, and so that way you get some light into this tunnel, and as they're kind of coming down, they can see right here a little bit, and then once they get down in the bottom of the tunnel, there's not a whole lot to see. I did think about giving the bears access to the roofs of these, but then I decided not to in the end. Main reason is I felt they would need some kind of barrier on at least the guest sides of the roofs, and I didn't really want to do that because I liked the way these ended up in their roofs. So I ultimately did not give them access to up there. I did, however, give them access to this back side. I did want them to come over. That's something else I do need to spend a little more time with, is they can get over here, but it doesn't really register. I don't know, I guess it's just the climbing thing. They can climb on the stuff, they can get down, but the game registers their area really weird once they get over here, and it gives me welfare things because it doesn't, I guess, directly attach in its traversable area. But anyway, and I also need to make it where the guests can, not the guests, but the staff can walk over there as well. And I was working on that with the rocks, but those are just finishing touches I do need to do as well. But ultimately, the construction of the habitat is complete. There's just a few little small things that I need to do, and we'll tackle that next week. And so I'm just splitting each one of these out so they end up on their own grid, and just spinning them until I think I have the right angle, and then I nudge them around. So I'm just using X to toggle back and forth between the advanced move arrows and the advanced move circle. And I was trying to keep this one all one piece, but where I'm at with the curve, that's just not gonna do. So I end up copying it and moving it, and that way I can just split that one out and do the same process. Now you can, since it is one, Control X, just that group, and then slide it out. Personally, I like to go ahead and just put it in the group and then split it. I feel like it kind of gives me a better reference for where I need to start in moving the piece versus manually moving it out. So there's more than one way to go about it, but I prefer setting it down inside that group and then splitting it out and giving it the little nudges that it needs. That's my preference. I do kind of bounce around from side to side. Right here, I was really making the decision, do I want the dirt to show and the guests to walk potentially through this? They'll probably walk through the terrain anyway. Or do I want to let the dirt show? And I think ultimately I went mostly with covering the dirt on the bottom. I wasn't too concerned about the top because I do have a way that I'm going to do the roof. You'll see when I get there to solve that problem. So I ended up, I'll just go with covering, with the covering the dirt on the bottom. And so I'm going to grab one more, and I'm trying to see, it's almost like, it really needs to be back there. So I'm going to split it out. If it doesn't bother you that guests walk through the walls, you can keep it more straight. It's up to you how you want to do it. I try to keep it, like I said, as close to the curbs as possible. Usually I'll show the curb a little bit. It just bothers me that guests can just walk through all the walls without a door being there. I almost wish the wall had to have a door so that a guest would register, I can walk through here. Same thing with staff. I remember my very first zoo, and I was thinking, if I put this here, they won't walk through it. And I was very surprised. It's like, oh man, well, that idea didn't work. And then right here, when I get here, it's like, this goes out into, the pathway a little bit. I was a little frustrated. I could have set it down and slid it back. They would have fought. I would have needed to shift one back. So you can see I'm thinking about that right here. And ultimately I decide, and you can see the Z fighting right there on the left. I decided, I'll come back and we're just gonna go this way, and I'm gonna set one down. And then I end up getting the cross piece in, And so my decision was I'll just put a little planter right here. So it takes me a little while to kind of sort out what I'm going to do. But as I'm doing the voiceover after building, that's ultimately the decision that I made. So there's all the options for you of what I thought about. If you decide, if you're following along or trying to, you want to do this differently. So I decided I'll go ahead and duplicate this one to get the cross piece and line those up a little bit better. And then that will determine where this piece goes. I could have, I guess, set it a little further back instead of leaving it right there. But I did kind of want it as a barrier to the people so they don't just hop down there. And that was before I made the decision to put the rails up on the path. So when you get down underneath the ground, it does start to get a little difficult in building pieces and getting them where you want them to go. So sorry for some of the bad camera angles and pieces in your face. So I'm just laying out where everything's gonna go, and then we'll go back and put the ones above it. So right here, I really wanted to be one step back. So I go ahead and straighten this one out, I think, right there. We're gonna go ahead and I'm deciding how I'm gonna do it. So I was like, well, I guess I'll just come straight out and then we'll shift those around to meet that one. And it looks like I'm trying to cover up the dirt too, so I'm making those decisions. So I left those a little further out to cover up the terrain nasties, and I'll go along later, and I don't think it's in the video, but I'll go along later and I'll just use some little rocks to cover up those little bits of dirt that are sticking out from the edge so that it looks a little prettier. So I decided right here I'll go ahead and make that turn. Later I should have made this a straight shot for when I go to put in the tunnel, because I think I made it a straight shot on the other one. But I think this side does have the more dramatic curve, whereas the other side is a little more straight. It's got a very subtle curve. So this one's gonna kind of tuck into it. They don't quite meet at a nice 4-meter section, and that's okay. So I'll just slide this all the way back because that side's gonna tuck underneath, and then we'll get the spin just right to bring it forward and have them meet all nice and pretty. So you can see I was looking right there and it's not quite right, so I'm gonna move it a little bit more. If I get real close, I can kind of see they have the same space left and right, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I just really do try to get them to meet in a way that's not obvious that there's a piece going into a piece. And there we go, I found it for the most part. So we'll go ahead and start putting the ones up. So I do hold shift to get them to raise into the air. Now I'm gonna look right here and decide how I want to cover this up. I had thought about rocks, but I decided I'll just go with this right here, but I'm not sure if it's too low. I thought about grabbing those people, but ultimately I went and got the Angry Archer, except he doesn't live in construction. He lives in blueprints. He's from the workshop. I did not make him. Lots of people use him. He's a great little reference. But you can also just move people around if you want. You can just grab them and then click move and then plop them. So right here there is enough head clearance where I have that big concrete thing. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting in some concrete floor. So we're going to find our concrete floor, and there it is. And so I'm trying to decide where I want it. So I'm going to put it right there and just bring it out to the my brain just stopped. I'm gonna bring it out into the tunnel. So technically right now the guests are underwater, So the way I did the path in the last episode is just to find that little sweet spot where the tunnel will let you get just underneath, and it will get rid of the terrain at the bottom as you go underneath. Now, if I wanted to, I could have made this circular down here, now that I think about it, instead of just a straight walkthrough. You can do that if you like. Once you get it flat, you can align the surface, or not align the surface, but align the grid, and make yourself, a little plaza down there. Now that I think about it, I probably should have done that. Oh well. I might have been able to get out of here the way I wanted to, but that's okay. It's alright. It is how it is, and I'm happy with how it came out. I'm thinking if I had just thought that through a little differently, it's amazing what you come up with later. I could have probably been able to get out and done this the way I wanted to. That's okay. I do like how this came out. So this little section, I really was trying to figure out how I wanted to do it, and I could see the way that I was trying to line up. It's gonna probably get me going away, angled out in a way I don't want to be. So I decided I'll just kind of come right out here where it starts going straight. And originally I was going to line just this piece up. So you can see I'm using the curb kind of as a marker to get that flush. And so I set that down, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to level out this one here. It was just such a difference in what I was trying to do. I decided I would use a smaller piece right here. That way I could keep the other piece straight and have less turning to do. As I went through the underwater portion of this, I wanted it to be a little more straight and lined up with the actual path. So I'm going to use this little small one and go ahead and kind of line it up, and then I'm going to slide it back like I did on the other one so it hides behind the one on the left. And there we go. So I've got that where I want it pretty much. It looks pretty good. I'm just looking at where those edges meet, and I'm pretty happy with that. So here we go. We're going to come back to this side and go ahead, and I can see these aren't quite lined up the way I wanted them to be. But again, I already kind of knew when I was looking at this how I wanted to do it. So they're already in their own group because that first one I clicked on was by itself. So I'm trying to get a little bit of an aerial view. We're in the water, so I'm able to do that. I can't take the water out anymore of this area because I have put in the path. So once you put water and then path underneath it, you either have to undo all your pathing if you want to mess with the water, and then do the pathing again, which is why I did not go back and kind of add in some of the other ideas like I should have done on the front side of this, where you can actually see into it from the ground instead of a big rocky thing. But I decided just to leave it the way I built it, and it's a little man-made, and that's okay. A lot of things in zoos are man-made. Not all of them have real perfect nature looks to them. So I can see just to the right over there that I've got a little bit of terrain sticking through, and now I've got it covered. So I'm going to set that down, and I'm just going back over here to see how it lined up, and I got lucky. It looks pretty good. So we're pretty much done with that little section, and we're ready to move on to the next part, which I decided I'll go ahead and cover this up right here, where we're not in the water and it's saying obstructed. Oh, I'm trying to grab the path. Silly me. I was really wanting to just grab this. So you can see, like I said, when you get underground, underwater, it does get a little tricky to get pieces to cooperate. And right there I decided I did not want that to go straight up. I left it open because I'm going to put a little planter in there, and then we're going to do this part out here, so I go ahead and grab that second story that's going to go into, and I didn't see it right there. I mean, I can see that I should have. I can see where that wall is almost exactly in line with the ground. I do go back later and fix it. And it does kind of, I didn't realize it was going to adjust all those pieces. I forgot they were all attached. So I did have to go back and fix where the ceiling meets the wall on the left right here for that tunnel. Because when I sink it down to get rid of that little fighting on the ground level with the top of those walls, I kind of left a hole. So I had to go back and shift those back up. And then I tried a couple of different things. Originally I was going to do just a flat glass roof on the bottom, but I didn't like it. So I went with this tunnel glass. I did try it kind of sunk down. I didn't like that either. So I preferred it to be up here. And I just went with building the tunnel, putting the pieces down. I worried about getting it a little more centered after the fact. So, looking back, it would have been a lot easier if I'd kept that right side straight like I did on the left, instead of following the curve so much and not worried about my people walking through walls. And so again, those are just choices you can make. Let the guests walk through the walls, go along the curbs, however you like to do it. As I was centering this, that's where I made the decision. Let me go ahead and put the rest of this together. That way I can kind of better see how this is going to look. Not many people are going to be viewing it from above, just the bears. So I never do see them deep dive. So I don't know if I just didn't make this big enough. I was thinking about extending it all the way here. But it goes into the wall, and I don't know, I just didn't really feel that, and I could see where this one was. It wasn't gonna play nice either. It would just not do how I wanted if I went all the way out. So I went ahead and just kept it 3 long instead of going for 4. And I'm gonna go ahead and give the spin and try to center this as much as I can from the left and the right, so that hopefully the tunnel kind of comes out of the center of each piece a little bit, and then be able to cover this up all nice and pretty. I'm going to go ahead and get the concrete floor again and just cover the bottom of this with concrete floor. And I end up, once I get all this done, highlighting all the pieces and sliding them under. So if you are following along, I recommend setting one down, splitting the group, and then doing the right side, so you can shift those underneath that little white tunnel piece there. Unless it doesn't bother you. It bothered me. It looked like it needed to be supported by the floor a little bit better. And then do the left side, split one out, and do the same thing. I was kind of looking at different ways to keep those from fighting, but then I just decided it didn't matter if they fought or not. Nobody's really going to be in here looking at these to see that they're fighting, because from the tunnel side you're not going to see it either. They're underneath, they're outside the walls of this tunnel, so you won't see the fighting. Most of it was just for, if you're looking at it from above, you can kind of see that the bottom is done and it's supported. I was more concerned about that. And so right there, I was trying to decide, how I wanted to do this. And I ultimately take these out and then put in the straight, so they have a nice straight attachment right there. So I put in pieces that are on the grid with the tunnel versus being on the grid with whatever wall I had put them in with originally. So that way it connects all nice and straight. and doesn't matter about the rest of it. So right here is where I make the decision to move all of those pieces. So I'm highlighting one side at a time to split them from the main group, and I'm trying to decide if I need those all the way out there or not, and I decide I don't. I just need the ones that directly push up against this little tunnel, and I'm watching the shadow so that I can get it just underneath that metal, and I like that a lot better than that little gap like you can see on the left there. And so I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to grab all the ones that are attached, just the three long, and I'm going to go out so that those can come with it too, so there's no gaps. And then we'll slide this to where it just meets the edge of that metal, and to me that just looked way better than having, the little ledge there just kind of sticking out. I don't know, it bothered me. My other thought was I could put some wood in there, but I didn't want to do that either. So I'm pretty happy with that. So we're going to move on. I'm putting in an education board down here, and then I'm going to put in a speaker, and I'm just going to set it right down right here. That way I can do all the settings for the speaker, and then I'm going to just sink it down underneath the path in the middle of the tunnel there. So I just wanted to be able to see it instead of having to go hunting for it. And I probably should have just hit M for move right here. And I think ultimately I do. I'm just like, why am I doing this? Let me just do it this way. And then shift to sink it down underneath the path. And there we go. So we're kind of done. I blocked that guy's view, but he's still trying to look. That's pretty funny. And I'm going to come over here. I'm going to add that same glass style that I have on the other tunnel entrance on the other side. And I did have to kind of get in a little close. As you can see right there, they're not spun the right way, so they do matter. So I had to go back and grab I could have moved the other one, but I end up getting a new one and spinning it to make sure that it matches. So I'm like, okay, we need to turn that one around. So those New World windows do matter which way they're going. Once you make that, it looks like from the curve it determines that for you. That one depth needs to be on the inside, and the more flat straight needs to be on the outside. So right here I did try a 4-meter wall, but it kind of got in the way of the bear, so I end up changing the elevation right here. So this is where I made my life a little difficult when it comes to the roof. Right here I was thinking about not making that change, but the terrain over there is how it's going to be. So actually I think right here I decide I'm going to make that change happen on this one. So I go ahead and grab a 2-meter glass and then put a 1-meter glass on top of it, so that I can I think I have the 1-meter roof piece, the little angle one. I was thinking about, do I want this here or do I want the other one? So I went with the 1-meter square, and then I'm going to grab the 1-meter slope wall piece, and we're going to bring that wall down. Now right here I should have just kept that piece and stuck it straight out from the other one. Instead I did it a little differently, and made it harder on myself. So I should have just built that straight out from right there. In my mind I was kind of like, I wanted this a little further away, but I wasn't thinking about roofs when I was trying to decide where I wanted this, how I wanted it to go. And I ultimately ended up not using 2 4-meter glass walls, obviously. I end up mirroring what's going on the left side so that I can do the roof. So my original thought was I will make this even, and then we'll be good. But when it comes to custom roofing, that's just a pain, and I really did not want to make a complicated roof here. And then I can also see right here, this is just a little too low. They walk away, so I was like, man. But as I watch them, I can see his head's just, it's going to hit it, or it's going to barely make it underneath. So I go ahead and delete one of these and grab, I think I decided to do all 1 meter. No, maybe I did do the 2. But yeah, no, I did. Because I like the squares. I wanted all to have the same square. And it's moving up in increments that I don't want. So I went ahead and moved this down to a 1 meter jump. And there we go. So it gives me the jump that I need instead of going all crazy. So I left the other one there so that I could get these in place with where I'd already set it down. And then I went ahead on this side and went all the way up so that I could get this to meet again. And then on the other side, I'm not going to do all 4. I'm just going to do 3 of them. And here's where I'm just kind of nudging around, but I'm going to make changes to this. I'm kind of already thinking about, oh, that roof is going to be a problem. So really, I should have probably just stayed on that grid instead of giving this curve, because I'm going to make that meet differently in the end. Yeah, you can see I'm thinking through that, and I'm like, oh, if I push that away, that's not going to be the right choice. So I go ahead and put in the other side, and I'm going to go get that other piece and finally make the decision to go ahead and bring this in. I should have put down the roof piece to line this up, or just redone it. But anyway, I did it the hard way with advanced move. So I just kind of bring it in so they meet. And I hadn't quite decided on my roof yet. So I was thinking about spinning, but I can see it, sticking through. So I give a little nudge back. But I'm going to end up having to adjust this a little bit more when I do put the roof piece on, because I'm going to use an inverted corner right there to make it a little easier to get the roof in. I don't know what I did in my editing, but we did miss just me putting some floor down into the ground. It's off the grid of glass that's facing where the bear was standing. So you kind of see where it is right there. And I'm putting in some concrete on the underside, and I want the glass to go into that concrete. So I'm just shifting this up just a little bit. So I had set it down to match the grid that's down there. And then I do off camera pull up the terrain just a little bit around here to cover up some of that concrete. And then I'm also just kind of pushing it down as far as it kind of goes so that the concrete stays on top and the glass goes into it. And then here's kind of where I start playing around with my roofing ideas underneath here. So right there I can see, okay, I can see that it's not hiding. I like that. And then what I end up doing is bringing another piece out. So I'm going to set it down right underneath it once I make the decision. And then I'm going to split that out because I don't want them obviously level. I decided, I want to kind of give this a little bit of step down. So I'm going to pull this to just go back a little bit and then kind of get a little bit in the middle. I can kind of see the terrain change right there. So I'm trying to decide where I'm gonna go with this. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it, oops, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to go a different direction. So I'm gonna match it right here. And then as soon as it kind of stops, covering things up. So I was like, right here looks good, I think. I'm kind of going for just a little step look as you walk down. So I wanted to kind of evenly space it, but the real goal of this was also to hide that terrain. So I'm going to set another one down. I'm going to go ahead and split it from the group and hit X on it. and I'm going to nudge it to meet the one above it and slide it back. And I was a little disappointed on the left that the terrain's still sticking through. I didn't go back and put rocks like originally had planned, because I was like, ooh, I can come all the way out here with it, but I'm not really crazy about it. So I'm going to go ahead and just go with my original idea, where it's kind of evenly spaced as you go down. I accidentally duplicated outside of the group right there, so I had to double click on the piece to get back in the group. And here's where I start deciding how to do this roof. Originally I wanted more glass happening, but those pieces are not straight, and they're not going to fit together nicely if I go into each group and put something roof-like off of them from the curve, and that one that comes to it down to where we are right now, where the little inverted pieces, none of those will line up. They're all in different grids. So what I'm doing here is lining this up, which is why I said I should have just built this off that grid the roof pieces on. It would have saved me a little bit of trouble of trying to eyeball it. I could have, I guess, taken it down and I guess fixed it that way. So what ultimately I end up doing is I did put the curved glass piece on the right, and I'm going to continue the concrete out from here, and ultimately I do end up something a little bit different. You'll see I was thinking about going all the way across here and making more of like a den for the bears, but I didn't go with that. I decided to do something a little different. As I was looking at it, I just couldn't really envision how that would look, so I decided I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of this glass piece, and I'm going to double this out kind of like the other ones are. So from, you have kind of a shade right here as you're looking out, and then I'm going to go up to the top of the building, and I'm going to duplicate this guy. I'm going to spin it around on a 45-degree angle and go ahead and set that down, and I'm going to duplicate one more to come out onto this, so that kind of I guess makes a little more sense as to why this is square up here. And go ahead and match that up on the roof. There we go. So it kind of, that little walk space around. And this is where I was thinking about, hey, I could let the bears go up here. So since that was already a group, I just scooted it over so it had even spacing all the way around. All right. So we're going to end the episode right here. I do have some sneak peek pictures for you of it all done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a great day. And if you have not subscribed yet, I do appreciate the subscriptions. I can't talk. So please consider it if you have not. If you've already subscribed, thank you so much. I do appreciate it. And I hope that you enjoyed this video today. And I hope that you look forward to the next bear tunnel. And I will see you in the next one. May the RNG odds be ever in your favor.